Hey, what's up, YouTube? It's your boy Barlow B Theorizing, and welcome back to the Barlow Zone, home of the one and only demon hunter King Kaido, himself sent to Azeroth. How's everybody doing today? I hope y'all having an amazing day. Uh, man, it's always weird for me on off weeks. Even before I started posting videos here on YouTube, it was always weird for me because there's always that part in the back of my mind that's, oh man, I really want the chapter. But then, after it dies down, I'm like, yeah, Oda needs some time off. The man's been putting in 28 hard years of work. Needs time to be a father, right? Like, needs time to be there for his girls, be there with his wife, make whatever, carve out whatever time you can as a father, right? Especially when you're writing a story that even if not your intention has the potential to I don't want to say change the world, but at least cause people to start thinking, right? Like when you're doing something that big, you got to make sure you're carving time for the family, right? Make sure the kids especially don't feel neglected or ignored or forgotten, right? And I gotta say, that's one wild intro because, man, I woke up today thinking about Full Metal Alchemist and my boy Monkey D. Goat, Dragon himself. And, I was scrolling through, what was it? I think it was here on YouTube, actually. I was scrolling through just looking for something to watch, right? Something to listen to. And I came across this thumbnail talking about Hohenheim. And I got to thinking, like, man, von Hohenheim was an incredibly complex and deep character in the Full Metal Alchemist universe. Like, to this day, you got people on both sides of the argument. Like, he was a crap dad. People who are all, man, he was just doing the best he could to try and give his sons a world worth living in, right? I personally fall on the latter half of that. I'm all, hey, the man saw evil in the world and decided he wanted to do something to try and make a difference, right? So I think I want to talk today about Hohenheim Dragon and the possibility that Oda may be setting up to pay homage to one of the greatest endings to a manga or anime ever, at least that I've seen. Like, you got a lot of endings that are really solid, right? Like, I like to talk about Fairy Tail. We'll talk about the final season of that, right? Like, there were a lot of plot twists and a lot of developments, and you had Natsu almost giving in, but then it turns out Gray was his rock, and then turns out Urza was the rock for both of them, and then Makarov, and like the final season was popping, firing on all cylinders, right? But I personally wouldn't say it was really any better than any other season of Fairy Tail. Like, that they were all popping. Now, in comparison, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, right? Like, I'm not saying that the beginning or middle of the story wasn't popping. Like, there was a lot going on. Like, Maze Hughes, rest in peace, brother. Fighting the good fight out there, gave it all, right? We ain't even gonna talk about this one. But then, you had Mustang coming into his own, realizing the problem in his world. And it wasn't bad, right? Like, it was a really great story from start to finish. But man, when the final war against Father kicked off, it took everything about Full Metal Alchemist and cranked it up 1,000%. Like, just bam, like, just to the max, let's go. And man, it paid off. And Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is widely considered to be one of the greatest anime of all time, and I will never argue against that. I love that show. Uh, I have read some of the manga, but I'll be honest, Full Metal Alchemist is kind of like Fairy Tail or Sword Art Online for me, where I watched the anime, got connected to characters in the anime, and then tried to go back and read the manga, and I was like, there was stuff in I don't know. Sometimes I do prefer the anime. And I just want to make that clear because, I'm always talking about how much I prefer the manga for One Piece over the anime for One Piece, right? But the difference in quality or whatever between manga and anime isn't what I'm here to talk about, right? I want to talk about these two men as fathers. And that's kind of why I called that intro kind of wild, right? Because, like, I almost feel like Dragon is the character Oda sees himself as in the story. I feel like maybe I've heard that somewhere, read that somewhere before. Might have been a rumor or a theory, or maybe he mentioned something in an interview. I can't remember. I'm probably not going to take the time to look up anything on that for confirmation or not, because it's more just the idea of it. If he has said something, let me know. Like, that'd be really awesome to me. Like, a character I really love and resonate with also happens to be somebody that Oda resonates with. That'd be really cool. But real quick, we'll go over Hohenheim real quick, just to kind of point out the things that I noticed that are parallels between Von Hohenheim and Monkey D. Dragon, right? So with Hohenheim, he always loved his boys. Everything he was doing was for Ed and Alphonse, right? Like, he wanted to make the world a better place for them to be safer and have a happy life. And that brings us to the problem when he met Father as the homunculus. What was it, like 500 years before the events of the story. The conversations that they had led Hohenheim to see an issue. And I guess they both saw the issue. Like, the conversations helped them both see the issue. But what it came down to was Father, as a homunculus, wanted to take over everything to fix that issue. And Hohenheim had better hopes. He believed in humanity. So their ideals ended up clashing, and that's what caused them to split off. But, Father respected Hohenheim, and that's why he chose that visage for whenever we saw Father, right? It was always that really weird pale white version of Hohenheim. And Hohenheim never forgot about Ed and Al, right? Like, oh man, I feel bad. It's been a while since I watched it, but their teacher, I'm blanking on her name. I'll get that picture up here just in case anybody else is blanking on it. Probably get the name underneath. But she was, or trained the boys kind of at Hohenheim's request, right? Like, she kind of prided herself on never training anybody. Like, it wasn't something she saw fit to do. But she did end up choosing to train Ed and Al, kind of so Hohenheim could help keep tabs, like, hey, make sure my boys are doing all right. And he spent his entire life trying to set up one thing to counter Father, right? Like, Father wanted to become a god and take over. And Hohenheim spent 500 years carving his own transmutation circle so that when things popped off, he would be ready with his own Uno reverse card, basically, right? Where he'd be like, oh, you thought you had it, but nah. One up, son. But, by the time Father's plan really kicked off, Hohenheim was getting old. He was kind of coming to the end of the life cycle that the Philosopher's Stone that he had become had within it. And because of that, he started having to think outside the box, try and come up with some other way. And that's what ultimately led him to realize Ed and Al are the key. My boys are the key. They made a mistake in their depression and their depths of despair when they were children. They made a mistake that ultimately will help them, help me, help the world. Sorry, that was a long walk for a short drink of water there at the end, wasn't it? But that's kind of the big point with Hohenheim, right? Is at the end of it, he realized that his sons, the boys he never stopped caring about, the boys he left behind in an attempt to not drag into this, were the key to success in his mission. That sounds kind of familiar. I don't know, maybe just to me, but if we take a few ticks here to think about our boy Monkey D. Monkey D. Dragon. Sorry, I'll try to stop doing that. He cares about Luffy. Like, I don't know, it could be argued. I could see it being argued that he doesn't care about Luffy, but the way he talked to Kuma, because during Kuma's flashback on Egghead, we ended up finding out that during Kuma's travels, he ended up going to Goa Kingdom and didn't meet Luffy, but kind of observed the boys for a while, right? Just kind of watched them, little, how are they doing update, looking on the kids type thing, that parents do at parties. How, I don't know, if you got kids, you probably know how it goes. But the way Dragon talked to Kuma when they were talking about that moment, I don't know, man. When I hear something like children are their parents' biggest weakness, or children make parents vulnerable, something like that, I think that itself is the confirmation that Dragon does care about Luffy, right? Because if Dragon didn't care about Luffy, then it doesn't matter what the world government or some pirate crew does. They could snatch him up, ring up Dragon like, hey, we got your boy. We want you to shut down the RA, turn yourself in, or he's gonna die. And whatever, fam. I don't even care about that little boy. That's why I left him behind. Like, no. Making Dragon vulnerable is the confirmation that Dragon does care about Luffy, because he is saying that Luffy is a weakness for me. I care about him to the point that I would do anything to ensure his safety if something bad were to happen to him. And if anybody found out he was my son, they would know that as well. So that little line about children being the parents' vulnerability, being the parents' weakness, is our confirmation that Monkey D. Goat cares about Child D. Luffy. Nah, that second one, nah. I'm sorry about that one. I was reaching way too far on that. I ain't never gonna do that one again. But Monkey D. Goat stays until further notice. But Dragon also, during this flashback we're seeing, Dragon saw a problem in the world, right? Like, he's witnessing with his own eyes the evil of the people he works for. And he decides to make a move to affect real change. Like, man, you got to respect that, because, all of us, even me, it's kind of just a trait of humanity, right? We all talk about our ideas for what might make things better, but very few actually have that drive to go out and do something to affect real change. But, Dragon never forgot about Luffy. Because of the flashback with Kuma, we have relative confirmation that Dragon knew that there was some relation between Sabo, Ace, and Luffy. And Dragon adopted Sabo. Yeah, I know, he didn't tell him anything. Dragon, you could have done better, my goat, but you still adopted the boy, you still helped him survive, and you helped him get out of a situation that even as a kid, he had already seen was a bad situation to be in, right? And this always looking east bit, right? I don't know which way's east where I'm at right now, but the always looking east. He was always dreaming about, and I admit, before I finish this sentence, I admit this is kind of my headcanon on it. But he was kind of always dreaming about being back with his little boy, right? Getting a chance to be a father. Honestly, I don't know. It didn't occur to me until I was talking to my friend about this little idea I had between Dragon and Hohenheim. But it also makes sense for Dragon to leave Luffy with Garp, right? He's decided, okay, you know what? The path I've chosen is dangerous, Pops. I know you aren't going to join me, but my son doesn't deserve to be sealed to a fate he didn't choose. Please raise my boy the way you raised me, with that tender, loving care that, ultimately made me question my authorities and, not do what I was told. And shot one of the celestial dregs, but, still raise my boy the way you raised me, right? Like, it makes sense because as I kind of mentioned, it would seem that Dragon was raised with that tender, loving care, right? Like, Garp wasn't beating the hell out of him and throwing him into forest for who knows how long until they can get themselves out. It seemed like Dragon was an attentive and present father. Garp was an attentive and present father for Dragon. So it would make sense for Dragon to trust his son to his own dad. He doesn't know that Grandpa Garp's getting ready to beat the bloody brakes off of Luffy for the next 10 years. I think he would have cared, but I don't know. I digress. And then what else has Dragon done? He's spent his entire life now. Like what? He was 17 during the events at God Valley, and you spend the next 38 years, that's your life. He spent his life building up the Revolutionary Army in an attempt to change the world. Now, I do like to have some theory fun whenever I present these videos for y'all, right? I do have one other fun note. I guess two other. This other one I'm going to add up here now. Since I'm talking about the Full Metal Alchemist angle to this, it's also, a little intriguing to note that Sabo and Ace fill a very similar role to Alphonse Elric did in Full Metal Alchemist, right? Where the brother died, but then was returned. We've been told that the previous users of Devil Fruit, like, I don't know, some like a piece of their soul or a bit of them hangs on to that power, right? Even after they die. And if that person has a strong enough will or resolve, they can communicate through the devil fruit to a future user of that devil fruit, right? So we kind of got this angle with the brother dying and coming back as well. So, it's just some I kind of noticed while I was typing it up, talking to my friend, like, oh yeah, even Sabo and Ace resemble Alphonse in this scenario, looking at it in this manner. And the other interesting note, this one's at the bottom. I don't know why I put it there. But fire and rubber, right? Like, what has been Luffy's biggest weakness? It's been swords, stabbing, slash attacks, like sharp bladed weapons, right? Unless he can dodge it or, hockey up at the last second, it's going to be a big hit. Even with hockey, if the other person's also got some strong hockey, you might still take a little bit through that defense. But you add fire and a little bit of sulfur. Oh my God, sulfur. Magma. No, okay, I ain't going that deep. But you had a little bit of fire and sulfur, right? All of a sudden, you've got vulcanized rubber. Not sure. I did have to do a little bit of research while I was writing this one up because I didn't want to sound too dumb talking about it. Again, I'm no scientist, but essentially what vulcanized rubber is taking the super elastic form of rubber and hardening it. Like, yeah, okay, you're losing a lot of the elasticity properties of the rubber, right? But all of a sudden, you're not so weak to swords or daggers. and you still got a little bit of the elasticity to help mitigate the punches and the cannonballs and the, I don't know, I imagine Blackbeard's going to use those pistols at some time. Like, so, adding fire with this rubber in the end is really seeming like it's onto something, right? But to the theory part of it, because this connection with Hohenheim that I'm kind of developing, right, includes the last bit I mentioned in the Hohenheim section about how in the end he realized that his sons were the key to success. And that's the theory. In the end, when Dragon and the Revolutionary Army and everybody shows up for the final war, right? When Dragon's finally ready to put whatever plan he has in motion into action, he's going to realize, I need Sabo and Luffy to do this. This is not something I can do. I really hope Dragon doesn't have to die at the end like my boy Hohenheim did. I mean, that was a beautiful and touching moment that gave Ed and Al some closure. But I'd like to see that closure happen for Sabo and Luffy without having to lose Dragon. But, a big reason why I'm really liking this idea of Dragon realizing the boys are the key to success, right, is also because a big theme of One Piece as a story has been passing the reins to the next generation to lead the future. And Dragon's kind of already seems to be understanding that, right? With Sabo taking a much more front-facing role with the Revolutionary Army, right? Like, there are a lot of nations now who are aligning with the Revolutionary Army because of something Sabo did, whether it was being credited with killing Cobra at the Reverie or helping a nation with a civil war that gave them freedom from the world government. Whatever it is, Sabo has been taking a much more front-facing role. Now, Dragon's still the known leader of the RA, right? He's still the most wanted man in the world. But Sabo is the Flame Emperor. He's kind of being seen as a fifth Yonko, which is weird because Yonko's a title reserved for pirates. So is Sabo a pirate or an RA? I don't know. I'm not here to talk about that one. But I suppose what it boils down to is I think at the end, it's going to be world government versus pirates versus RA, right? And because of who the main character is, we can kind of assume that the pirates are going to come out on top in this one, for better or for worse. But that means we're going to have Luffy leading the pirates, which includes potentially the likes of Blackbeard, Kaido, Doflamingo, just to name a few. We're going to have Emu obviously at the mast of leading the world government, which could include Blackbeard or Doflamingo, just, a couple pirates that might flip sides. But on that note, we're probably also going to be looking at the official separation of Sword from the world government when the final war kicks off, meaning Garp and Kobe and Helmeppo, just to name a few, are potentially going to be flipping to either the pirate and or the revolutionary side. But then you got the revolutionaries coming in, right? Like, Dragon should be leading the charge. He's been the leader the whole time. He might even be leading the charge as we're coming into the final war, right? But at the end of the day, hey, what's up, Alice? You finally decided to come and say hi. But when the war finally starts kicking off, when things finally start rolling and popping and going and fights are running and, all right, babies, come here. Oh. When everything finally starts going, no, you can't chew on the microphone. Sorry about that, y'all. I let her get a little too buck wild on that one. But when stuff starts going, Sabo will be leading the RA. I wasn't expecting her to come in like that. So it's going to come down to, as I said, Dragon is going to have to realize that Sabo and Luffy are the key to success in whatever plan he has. But this is just my theory because of a wild thought I had connecting Dragon to Hohenheim. As always, fam, I'd love to hear what you guys think about this one in the comments. You feel free to let me know. If you're liking the content, please don't forget to drop a like. Let me know that you're enjoying it. If there's anything you're enjoying specifically about the videos, speaking of, I have been thinking about doing a top 10. Not sure what to do. Give me some ideas. What kind of top 10s would you guys like that other creators have done? Maybe you like my opinion. What top 10s have you wanted to see get done that nobody else is doing? I don't know. This down week's really getting to me. So, let me know in the comments if a YouTube comment isn't enough for you. Feel free to drop into the Discord community, the Barlow Zone. And as always, you can find me on the socials at BarlowBTheorizing on X and Tumblr. And as always, well, I guess not always, it's just been the last couple, me and Alice are gonna say much love, friends.